This talk is on how I recovered from alcoholism without AA or any support group, using a method that I learned from reading the book Rational Recovery, a new cure for substance addiction. The technique is called AVRT, Addictive Voice Recognition Technique. I'm going to speak a little about my experiences of alcoholism and subsequent recovery. I'm going to describe what AVRT is and how to practice it yourself. I'm going to speak on how the rational recovery model explains where addiction comes from. And then we'll have a little exploration of some of the inevitable questions and things that arise in the process of learning this technique. So, the first thing is to understand that your addiction can be over today. Today. And there's going to be a part of you that is going to be very skeptical about this and might even be a little bit angry at me suggesting that. But in AVRT, we come to understand that those feelings of skepticism, doubt, frustration, and anger actually are the addiction itself. But it's my aim that by the end of this talk, you will be able to take your recovery into your own hands and through your own power, end your addiction today by the end of this talk. So stay tuned. And I would highly recommend reading the book Rational Recovery by Jack Trimpey. If you suffer from addiction, get that book, read that book. It will explain everything in far greater detail and far more eloquently than I ever could. But if you want to know about my story and listen to me give the details and the instruction on how to do this, then stay tuned. So about me, 10 years ago, picture the scene. I wake up and my hands are shaking. I'm having tremors in my hands. I have to peel the duvet off of me. It's that soaked with sweat. I struggle to get to my feet. I haul my obese 140 kilogram frame across the room and I'm knocking over half empty cider cans as I go. I'm panicking. I am shaking as I stagger and stumble to the bathroom. I am violently sick in the toilet. And I notice, with no small amount of total horror, that there is a lot of blood in the sick. I wipe my mouth, I stand up and I look in the mirror, and I don't recognize the face that is looking back at me. My eyes are so bloodshot that they're almost entirely red. Bright blood red. My face is blotchy. You can see the veins in my nose and my cheeks. And there are these deep, dark circles underneath my eyes. I'm sweating, panicking, beginning to hallucinate. I realize that I am close to dying. And if I don't do something about my alcoholism rapidly, that I will not be long for this world. Let's fast forward 10 years. That's the noise of fast forwarding. We fast forward 10 years. I wake up 5 a.m. I leap out of bed full of joy, full of energy. I immediately jump into a cold shower and enjoy. And then I'm out for a 5K run before going to hit the gym. I'm fully sober, fully happy, fully healthy, with no cravings, urges, or desires for alcohol at all. I'm completely sober. I work as a personal trainer and a meditation coach, and I enjoy good family, friendship, and romantic relationships. All is well. What happened? What happened to facilitate such a dramatic transformation? That's what I want to talk about here. So, in the recovery from alcoholism, I went through the phases that a lot of people go through of this despair. It is a horrifying thing to go through, not just the addiction itself, but the early days of recovery as you desperately try to stop drinking. Most people go through phases of a desperate searching for something that will help them to overcome their addiction. And I was in this pattern of when I first began trying to sober up. This was back in 2014. Of I would I would I'd wake up hungover again and decide, right, this has to stop. This has to stop. And so I would stop drinking, and I would manage to make it about 30 days, all the way up to probably about 50 to 60 days, and inevitably would go back to drinking again. And that creates this cycle of total despair, because you start off kind of confident, you start off with some sense of courage, and then at some point, and you might say to yourself, I don't know what happens. You do know what happens. You start drinking again. But this is what you believe. You believe, I don't know what happens. I don't understand why I went back to alcohol. And so you start looking for various recovery methods, and you go through the circuit of just trying to find various methods that will help you. And there are plenty of them. And I'm not here today to disparage or discredit or dissuade you from trying any of these methods. They're all great. They're all great. So go with whatever seems to work. Go for that. I'm just talking about one that a lot of people aren't too aware of, and it is remarkably effective when people come across it. The key that broke me out of the cycle of this sort of trying to go it alone was that I came across a forum called Sober Recovery. It was a support group online that where people who are going through recovery can go and share their ideas and experience, and the people who are securely abstinent and securely recovered can give some of their advice. And on joining that forum, I suddenly realized there's a lot of people that go through these experiences, and this is a very, very common pattern. And this was kind of massive for me. This was huge in and of itself, just to see that other people also go through this. I felt a huge weight lifted off of me, because I could also read stories of people who went through this and then recovered, and they're full of hope about the whole process. And I am now one of those people, fully recovered and securely abstinent. Looking back, I remember the horror and despair of those days, but I can tell you with total certainty to keep going, keep persevering, because you can get through to the other side of this. The only reason that you can't seem to break free just yet is that you don't have the knowledge that you need to understand your own addiction, to understand your own mind. But that's what people are like me are here for. We're going to give you the tools that you need in order to recover. And your addiction can be over today. Great news for you. Great news right here. It's bad news for your addiction. Your addiction doesn't want to hear this. Your addictive voice doesn't want to hear this. Your addictive voice wants you to believe this is some long, drawn-out process that's going to take years and relapses are inevitable and all of this. That's not true. That's not true. That's your addiction talking. So I'm going to get right into it right here, because I've already started going into it with AVRT, Addictive Voice Recognition Technique. And the clue is in the title. The clue describes what the technique is perfectly. Addictive Voice Recognition Technique. I mean, there's a complete curriculum. There's a complete lesson just in the name of the technique itself. addictive voice recognition, a lot of people twig straight away. The moment they hear this, they go, oh, actually, yeah, that makes sense. I understand. If you've been addicted and you are addicted, you will know exactly what the addictive voice is. You absolutely will know what the addictive voice is. In AVRT, what we learn to do is recognize the addictive voice in our own mind. And let's begin to learn the practice of addictive voice recognition technique. So to begin, I'm going to use I'm generally going to assume and use the model of alcoholism, because that's what I struggled with, and that's what a lot of people struggle with. But this does apply to any addiction, whether it's substances or an activity that you're trying to cease, but you are addicted to. AVRT works for all of this, but I'm going to use the language as if you are suffering from alcoholism. But if it's not alcoholism that you're suffering from and you suffer from a different addiction, just change the wording slightly to apply to you. So say to yourself, I am never going to drink again. And then watch your internal reaction to that statement. Do that now. Say to yourself, I am never going to drink again. Now, I would be willing to bet that your internal reaction ran along the lines of, you've said that before, or yeah, right, or you can't do that, or we've tried to stop before and failed, or just a straight up anxiety and fear that rises up in you when you say this, that feels like it's pushing back against you. Say to yourself, I will never drink again, and then simply watch the internal reaction that happens in your own mind when you say this to yourself. Now, that internal reaction, how your mind speaks to you, is not you, but it is your addiction. And we are already beginning to very powerfully separate yourself away from your addiction, to begin to create some distance between you and the addictive voice in your mind. The addictive voice recognition technique works in this way and this way alone. Coming to understand on a deep, automatic level when your thoughts and feelings are coming from the addictive voice. Now, when you're trying to recover from an addiction, naturally, your addictive voice has a lot to say about this. And in AVRT, the crucial thing is to begin separating you from the addictive voice in all of the ways that it can manifest. The addictive voice can manifest as words, thoughts, images, feelings, and often it pretends to be the voice of reason. The addictive voice pretends to be the voice of logic. So a classic one, you say to yourself, I'm never going to drink again, and your addictive voice says, it's not that simple. And on the surface, this seems quite reasonable. This seems quite logical. After all, we've been taught and we've been told that addiction is some kind of very deep psychological underpinning. It's a much more complicated subject than you think. And actually, addiction, it's a very deep, very powerful problem. And it's not as simple as just saying, I'm never going to drink. Right. All of that thinking is the addiction. The addictive voice is any thought, feeling, image, sensation, belief that supports the idea that you're going to drink again. So you say to yourself, I am never going to drink again. Any thought or feeling that disagrees with that is the addiction. It's not actually you. It's not you at all. So begin to understand what the addictive voice is, where it comes from, and the infinite number of ways that it can speak to you, even appearing as the voice of logic, pretending to be you, pretending to be speaking from experience. All of it is total rubbish. Any thought, feeling, idea, opinion, belief that supports the idea you're going to drink again is just the addiction trying to get its claws in you. So in AVRT, what we do is we make what's called the big plan, which is to say to yourself, I will never drink again and I will never change my mind. This is going to be a massive relief for you. We're going to do this right now. And I can guarantee your addictive voice is going crazy at me right now. Your addictive voice hates my guts right now. We're about to save your life, so stay with this. Say to yourself, I am never going to drink again, and I am never going to change my mind. Let your addictive voice, your AV, do and say whatever it likes. It will say, you can't do this. It's not that simple. It's more complicated than that. You've said this before. You're just setting yourself up for failure. I have far worse problems than just saying I'm never going to drink again. It's going to say all of this. It will rattle the cage. It will fight tooth and nail to try and tell you it's not as simple as that. But I'm here to say it is as simple as that. Say to yourself, I will never drink again, and I will never change my mind. And you can see with your own eyes now exactly how the addictive voice tries to convince you to continue your addiction. You've drawn the line in the sand. You have said, I am not going to drink again. And your addictive voice, which is very important to note here, is not you. It is a voice that speaks to you, tries to convince you otherwise. Your addictive voice is so sneaky and subtle. It might say, okay, well, let's just not drink for 30 days. Let's just start there. That's a classic. That is an absolute classic, that your addictive voice is a lot happier with delaying tactics and will say, well, let's just start with 30 days and then we'll see after that. Or it'll say, let's just do a period of time. Or another real classic is, well, no, you don't need to stop. You just need to cut down. And these are all the ways that the addictive voice. And look, you've been through this. The writing is on the wall. If you're listening to this, the chances are it's done. It's over. There's no grey area now. You have a problem. You have a problem that is going to kill you. And it's not just going to kill you quickly. It's going to be a very long, very drawn out, very humiliating, painful way to go. It's got to stop. It has to stop, and it's got to stop now, today. So say to yourself, I will never drink again, and I will never change my mind. And let your addiction say whatever it wants about it. In fact, now, the severity of the reaction that is coming from your addictive voice is actually going to start to help you, because it becomes so obvious that there is a difference between you and the addictive voice. It becomes incredibly clear that you can see every tactic the addictive voice is using. it will say, no, it's not that simple. Oh, it's more complicated than that. Oh, you can't do that. Then it's going to try some delaying tactics. Well, let's just go 30 days. Let's just go 60 days. And then it'll try, oh, let's just cut down. You don't really have that much of a problem because my friend who goes down the bar, he has the real problem. I don't actually have that much of a problem. And maybe I'll grow out of it, maybe a few years down the line. And all of this nonsense that it comes up with starts to become painfully obvious. And you begin to see deeply that this voice has been running the show behind the scenes for a very long time, and you have willfully turned a blind eye to how blindingly obvious the addiction is talking to you is. I will never drink again, and I will never change my mind. Now you can just watch the reaction as it comes up. Now, that's the big plan. So the big plan, and once you've drawn that line in the sand, so you're already going to start feeling this sense of separation from your addiction, and hopefully you're also starting to feel this huge swell of hope that starts to come into hope, optimism, joy, because there's the real part of you, the real you, the sensible you inside is going, yes, I get it, I get it. Now, you get into this little internal struggle, this internal battle, as the addictive voice is trying to squash that hope and trying to push that down. But now we can see it for what it really is. You can see the addiction very clearly and understand that the addiction can speak in words, it can speak in images, it can speak in feelings and emotions. It can speak to you in emotions. I mean, me, in my personal experience, just some of the examples. I mean, there are some ways the addictive voice tries to get you to drink again that are so obvious that it's easy to just dismiss. So maybe I've had a hard day at work and I just get this image in my mind of an ice cold pint of cider, and I start feeling my mouth salivate and everything, and I'm like, oh god, that'd be nice. And then I realize, oh well, that's really obvious that the addictive voice is just trying to get me to drink. It's just using an image. And so there's some very, very, very obvious ones, the addictive voice, that you get so good at recognizing, you just laugh off. There are also some more subtle ones that it can try. So being worried about relapsing, even the language relapsing isn't the right word really, because that implies it's out of your hands, and it's not out of your hands. It's always a choice. But worrying about drinking again, well, hang on, if you've decided never to do something ever again, why are you worried about it happening? You're not worried about drinking a bottle of bleach. You're not worried about just randomly driving to a cliff and jumping off of it. You're not worried about those things because you know you're not going to do it. So you don't worry about it. So if you've decided not to drink, why would you worry about it happening? I'll tell you why you're worried about it happening. Because your addiction wants you to worry about it happening, because that makes it far more likely that it's going to happen. Worry about doing something implies that there is a possibility that you could do it. But hang on, you've made the big plan. You've made the plan, I will never drink again, and I will never change my mind. You've made that plan. It's not going to happen. Oh, so the worry about alcohol, the worry about drinking again, is the addiction. Ding! The illusion is beginning to crack. Once you've seen an illusion, you can't unsee it. It's like a magic eye picture, you know, the one with the two faces looking inwards and there's a vase in the middle? Before you've seen the vase, all you can see is the two faces. But then somebody points out the vase and now you can see both. Once somebody has pointed out the addictive voice to you, you can't go back. You've seen it now. You've seen the addictive voice exactly for what it is. There are lots and lots of tactics that the addictive voice is going to use. In AVRT, it's about recognizing the voice, recognizing the tactics. It's important to note AVRT, it doesn't stand for addictive voice removal. It doesn't stand for addictive voice therapy. It doesn't stand for addictive voice healing. It doesn't stand for addictive voice destruction. It's addictive voice recognition. Recognition is the key. Awareness is key. Change only happens with awareness. And once you have recognized the addictive voice and how it talks to you, it's no longer a threat. It's no longer a threat. So let's say you've listened thus far and think, okay, got it. I understand what the addictive voice is. There is a difference between me and my addictive voice. But what do I do about this voice? What's the approach towards this voice? Here is the key. Ignore it. Ignore it. That is the only way that you are going to beat this thing, is to recognize the addictive voice, ignore it, and do something else. Either think something else, act in go and do something, behave in a different way. Just go and do anything else. You don't get into an argument with your addictive voice. Don't do it, because it will win that argument. Don't try and debate with it. Don't be rational with it. There's no point. Like, you wouldn't try and be rational or reason with a wild animal. Think of it like that. You wouldn't try and you wouldn't try and bargain with it. All you have to do is walk away. Once you have withdrawn your attention away from the addictive voice, it will subside and eventually will go away forever. Because if you simply cease paying attention to it, eventually it knows it's not going to get any attention from you and it's done. Your addiction is over. It will continue to try to convince you to drink quite a lot and quite severely in the early days, but it won't last forever. When you recognize the addictive voice for what it is, disengage from those thoughts and feelings, disregard what it's saying. It's always lying. All the addiction wants you to do is drink again. That's it. That's all it wants from you. It will pretend that it has your best interest at heart. It will say, "Oh, you're going through a really rough patch. You need alcohol at the moment just to get through it." It's lying. All it wants is more of the substance. That's all an addiction ever wants, and it will do anything to convince you to do it. Anything. It's a liar. It's always a liar. You don't need alcohol at all. It's done nothing but harm you, and if you continue to drink, it will kill you. Addictive voice recognition technique. It's about the recognition, not the removal, not the destruction. And you're not trying to win an argument with the addictive voice. You simply recognize it for what it is, ignore it, and get on with the rest of your life. Do not pay any attention to it. It's had enough of your attention. So the common sort of tactics that the AV uses, the addictive voice uses, is, you've said that before. Let's just go 30 days and then somehow this will cure you. So sometimes the addictive voice can say, well, let's just do a year of sobriety and then maybe we can just go back to moderate drinking. Nope, doesn't work like that, I'm afraid. If you've got a problem, you've got a problem. You've got no business drinking. It also will simply say, you can't do that. You're not capable of this. For some reason, your addiction will try to convince you that you're somehow sick. You've got a disease. Your brain is wired wrong, and brain chemistry or something like that. Nope. Disregard, disregard, disregard. It's all a load of total rubbish, garbage. Just don't drink. I will never drink again, and I will never change my mind. So that is AVRT in a nutshell. That's the crash course in how the technique actually works. And many people have ended their addiction just from that. It happens all the time. They just go, oh, I get it. They've seen the optical illusion for what it is. And that's it, done. I will never drink again. I'll never change my mind. Any thoughts or feelings to the contrary is the addiction. I choose to therefore ignore those thoughts and feelings, and instead I'm going to go and live a happy and healthy life. Whew, what a relief. Where does the addictive voice come from? This is going to be one of the inevitable questions that arises when beginning this process. So, don't worry so much about where the addiction comes from. Instead, worry about where the addictive voice comes from. We have two parts to our brain. We have the neocortex and we have the midbrain, or the limbic system. The neocortex is the part that we commonly understand as ourselves, as the way we think and process things logically. It's the center for our reasoning, for our rationality. It's how we organize our lives, and it contains everything that we come to see as ourselves. It is essentially the higher thinking part of your brain. It's the neocortex. And in many ways, it's the reason why human beings are so successful as a species, is because we have this ability to predict, to plan, to rationalize, and to organize information. So that really is the smart part of the human brain. The midbrain and the limbic system isn't quite so smart because it is primal. It is the part of the brain that deals with and processes our primal urges and desires, which mostly are to do with survival and reproduction. The limbic system craves food, it craves comfort, warmth, and shelter, and it craves sex. That's why we have these powerful, strong urges and desires that rise up in us. When we feel a very strong urge and you feel an excitement rising up in you, maybe even your heart starts to beat, your mouth starts to salivate, you might feel agitated, ready to do something. It's because your limbic system is beginning to get activated. So let's say you're a little bit hungry, and then you see your favorite food. Let's see, you're just walking along, you're a little bit hungry, and suddenly you smell your absolute favorite. Let's say it's pizza. Somebody walks past eating a pizza, you smell the pizza, and your whole system suddenly switches on. It's really excited, and then your mind is flooded with images of this food, and it's flooded with images of you going to get the pizza. It's flooded with images of you, where's my wallet? Because I'm going to go grab some pizza. I'm going to go get this pizza. Your whole biology, your mind, and your emotions all suddenly gears towards getting a hold of some of this pizza. What's happened there is that your limbic system, your midbrain, has received a signal, in this case, the scent of pizza, and suddenly sends the signal up to your neocortex to say, it's pizza time. It's time to get that pizza. And suddenly your whole biology and brain gears towards getting a hold of that pizza, which is why you suddenly feel very strong urges and desires. And the images in your mind are there to get you to act upon those urges and desires. And I don't need to go into quite such graphic detail for like when you're horny, when you're turned on, you see someone walking past or something, and the same kind of, you get a similar kind of response in your body. I mean, everybody experiences urges, cravings, and desires, and the associated sort of mental images that arise, even if you're just at work and you suddenly feel hungry, and so you start planning your dinner. This is the limbic system in a healthy state. This is what the limbic system doing what it does naturally. The midbrain sends images feelings, sensations, thoughts, emotions, perceptions to the neocortex as a kind of presenting its case. It says, wouldn't it be nice to have pizza? Wouldn't it be nice to have chocolate? Wouldn't it be nice to not go into work today and instead stay home and stay in bed? And it's the job of the neocortex to filter through what's a load of rubbish and what's a good idea. Your neocortex decides what is a good idea. Now, we have to act on all of these for our own survival. The limbic system decides, it tells you when you should eat. It tells you when you should find some comfort. It tells you when you should find rest. If we didn't have the midbrain, we wouldn't survive for very long, because there's a reason we have these primal desires. But the neocortex, the higher reasoning part of ourselves, we need that to survive as well, because if you acted on every animalistic primal desire that you had with no inhibition, the neocortex in many ways is the inhibitor. If we didn't have the neocortex, you would just act entirely on your animalistic desires, and that's not going to work either. So, I mean, some people, do, but they don't get very far. They don't live for very long, because we don't act like animals. That's not how human beings behave. That's not how we survive. So this interplay between the midbrain and the neocortex is very important. What's happened in the case of addiction is that your midbrain, your limbic system, has become very confused. Because alcohol or drugs stimulates dopamine, it activates the midbrain and the limbic system to a very, very powerful degree. It bypasses everything, goes straight to the midbrain, and increases dopamine by an insane percentage. It ramps up all of the pleasure centers within the midbrain like crazy. And what happens if you consume too much of this? Your midbrain becomes confused and starts to think that alcohol is necessary for survival. The limbic system gets confused and mistakenly believes alcohol or substance is necessary to survive. Why? Because it stimulates dopamine. Everything that we do for our survival stimulates dopamine. It has to, because we seek it out. Anything that makes us feel good, your midbrain assumes is necessary for survival and therefore wants you to do more of it. Alcohol is like a hack. It goes straight in and just ramps up the dopamine. So, because the midbrain has no perception of itself, the midbrain doesn't have its own neocortex. It's just an animal. The only information that it has to go on is the chemical signals that it's receiving. It's received a huge dose of dopamine and therefore thinks, whatever just happened, we need to do more of it. Which is why, then, when you cease drinking, you try to stop drinking, the midbrain feels like it's going to die, right? The limbic system is panicking. It believes when it can detect that your levels of alcohol in your body are going down and then gone, your midbrain starts to panic and says, we need more of that stuff. We need more of whatever it was. And so the midbrain speaks to the neocortex and will present tons of ideas, images, feelings, and sensations in order to try and get you to drink again. Because the midbrain is confused. That's all. That's all. There's nothing more sinister than that going on. That's it. There's nothing more evil or sick or diseased going on than that. Nothing's actually wrong other than a part of your brain has made a serious error, a very serious error, but it is just an error. It's mistaken. It came to believe that this thing that was increasing dopamine was necessary for survival. And now this thing has gone. We are now under threat. That's why the midbrain speaks to the neocortex in such desperate terms and will try anything at all to get you to drink again. It believes the organism is under threat mistakenly. Now you understand what's going on. You understand why the addictive voice speaks to you so strongly and where it's coming from. It's nothing sinister really. It's just a part of your brain that it's got the wrong end of the stick. It's received the wrong signals because the midbrain itself doesn't have a neocortex or any senses. It can only act on the chemical signals that it receives. And so because it believes it's necessary for survival, it will send it's why it uses the same tactics that it will use when it tries to get you to. Have you ever been on a diet and you want to you've been eating salads all week and then you see your favorite chocolate cake? I mean, your brain will go, your brain, so it got me there. The addictive voice will go, you see what happened there, how subtle it can be? Your addictive voice will go, or your midbrain, your addictive voice will go, oh, come on, you can just have a slice of cake just this once. You've had a hard week. You've been doing so well on this diet. Just have one slice of cake. Just have a small amount. Just have a little bit. You've earned it. You deserve it. These are all the tactics that it uses. And then you have one slice and your brain goes, yeah, well, you've done it now. You're going to have two. Now you're going to have the whole thing. Or one very big slice, the entire cake. So everyone's had that experience of trying to diet, and then the midbrain, the limbic system, goes absolutely crazy trying to convince you not to, because it can sense that the incoming food is a lot lower than it used to be. It feels like its survival is threatened and therefore tries everything desperately to get you to eat more. That is how the midbrain communicates to the neocortex. In the case of addiction, it's just a very severe, very, very powerful miscommunication between the midbrain and the neocortex, because now the neocortex has to work incredibly hard to sift out and through this knowledge deeply understand which of the thoughts and feelings are addictive in nature. The litmus test, the way to understand, is this addictive voice or not? The way to understand this is to deeply recognize the addictive voice is always trying to get you to drink again. It will support the idea of you drinking again in future. So anything along the lines of it's not that simple, anything along the lines of you've said that before, or this can't be right, or something like that, because all it wants is the substance. It is not interested in your well-being slightly, not even a little bit. All it wants is the substance because it doesn't know any better. That's all that's happening in your brain. Deeply recognize and understand, even to the level of you might be feeling anxiety and depression, and you feel like you use alcohol as a method of alleviating the suffering of your anxiety and depression. You're not aware that the addictive voice is causing the anxiety and depression. Addiction cannot solve the problem that addiction has caused, and it can cause this directly. You'd be stunned. My anxiety and depression cleared up when I stopped drinking and got clear of it and got on the other side of my addiction. I mean, it's not rocket science, is it? I stopped pouring this intense nervous system depressant into my system, and all of a sudden I felt a lot happier. I mean, it's not rocket science. So that is where the AV comes from in itself. You understand why it's there, you understand what it is, and now that you've learned to recognize it, you're going a long way to understanding how to overcome this thing. Now, there's a lot of questions that come up, and most of those questions are just AV. That's all they are. A lot of the questions that are like, oh, yeah, but what about this? Yeah, but what about that? Yeah, but what about the other? All of that, all of that is just your addiction trying to gain a foothold. Don't give it an inch. Your addiction will drive a bus through an inch. The key is to not drink. Now, a deeper sort of crucial understanding here is that the addictive voice can speak to you. It can't take control of you. Your addiction doesn't decide your behavior. You decide your behavior. In your mind, you have urges, desires, thoughts, and ideas, but you're always in control and you always choose what to do about those thoughts and feelings. Now, look, I don't mean to sound cold or dispassionate or like I don't have sympathy or like I don't have compassion, because remember, I've been through this and I've been through it to the point it nearly killed me. I had as bad alcoholism as it gets. I've been stood outside off licenses at 6 a.m. with shaking hands, desperately trying to get alcohol. I've been refused alcohol because I stank of booze, and off licenses wouldn't serve me. Pubs wouldn't serve me. I was that drunk. I've lost jobs due to alcoholism. I've lost relationships due to alcoholism. I lost the first 10 years of my adult life to alcoholism. I was a mess, absolute mess. And I've been through the ringer of the recovery process also. I've been through it. I know what it's like to go a long time without the alcohol and then drink again. And I know the despair. I know the horrible feeling of not this again. How am I ever going to break free? Am I ever going to break free? Maybe I should just end it. I've been through it all. I know what it feels like, and I don't want to be unsympathetic. However, at some point we have to start taking the hard line, because this has to stop. It's got to stop. And the addictive voice is so sneaky, it can work its way in so many different ways. You have to understand the addictive voice can't take control of you. As much as you want to say to yourself and to others, I don't know what happened. I can't, I just, something just comes over me. It feels like I've got no choice. I go and I just sort of got up and went down to the off license again, picked up, and I just don't know what's happening. I drank again. Now, I understand that, but if you run the clock back, run the tape all the way back and go, God, well, hang on. Okay, hang on. Did that really happen? Or did you just have an intense craving? That's what happened. You had an intense desire to drink and you acted on that desire. That's what happens if you are sober and then you drink again. Now, there may be lots of different circumstances in which this desire to drink arose. It may be because you were depressed, or it may be because you were at a party and somebody just handed you a drink and said, "Go on, you've gone long enough, you can handle it now," and you just went, "Ah, to hell with it. Okay, then." Now, if you run the clock back and you're truly honest with yourself, you know your addiction didn't take control of your body. You decided to drink. This is crucial. Your addictive voice can speak to you in an infinite number of ways, but it cannot take control of your decisions or your actions. Now, your addiction is going to be furious with me for saying that, And you're going to think it's you that's furious with me for saying that. You're going to be all ready to go, no, 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 no. I have this strange and mysterious disease that means I could relapse at any time if I don't just do X, Y, and Z and yada, yada, yada. It's a load of rubbish. It's a load of total garbage. And if you are serious about recovering, if you are serious about lifelong abstinence from alcohol, you are going to have to get very tough with yourself. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you this, but it's time for a little bit of self-honesty. You are going to have to get tough with yourself because your life is at stake. Your life is at stake. Not just your life, your family's life, your friend's life, the life of everybody around you. It's got to stop. It has to. And you can do this. You can do this. The fact that you're still listening to this means I know you can do this. If you've gotten this far and you're still listening, hey, there must be a part of you that desperately wants this to be true. It is true. I'm telling you from experience, it works. It works. It can feel confusing, although it turns out even the confusion is just the addictive voice. But ultimately, the key is the choice is always yours. Although your addictive voice can be convincing, it can be persuasive, it can be seductive, it can be threatening, it can't take control of your body, your decisions, your actions, and therefore your life. You are in control and you can end your addiction today. Say to yourself, right here, right now, I will never drink again and I will never change my mind. Now, that's AVRT, the big plan, and the limbic system. There's naturally, I mean that's everything you need to end your addiction. You've already heard, okay? Everything. That's all of it. That's everything. You can do this now. It's in your hands. You have the knowledge. You are now an expert on recovery. That's it. There's no more to it. That really is it. You are now a PhD in addiction recovery. You've just learned the entire syllabus. It never ever gets more complicated than that. There are many common questions and queries and criticisms that come from this. And I am always very hesitant to engage in any of that because it's so clearly just addictive voice speaking. A common one is, but what about my deep traumatic psychological condition? What about everything from my past? And everything is too, like, isn't that related in some way? And again, I'm not going to be unsympathetic because, hey, I've got all of that too. I'm right in the same boat. I got it all, okay? Childhood trauma, everything, the whole thing. The depression, the anxiety, the childhood trauma, the bad history, all of it. I've got the whole thing. I've been through the therapy, the drugs, the whole works. I am totally with you. You have to start separating the mental health stuff from the addiction. The mental health stuff, it would be an amazing idea to start getting that sorted out. Definitely go to therapy. Definitely take the antidepressants. Definitely do all of the things, all of the skills and resources that is going to heal you, heal your body, heal your brain from your very real mental health problems. I'm sure you have them. Psychiatric conditions, I'm sure you have them. But they've got nothing to do with alcohol. Nothing. Just you are not addicted because of a psychological condition. You're not. You're addicted because you choose to continue to drink. That's the bottom line. Now, in my experience, when I stopped drinking, a lot of my anxiety and depression went away. Over the course of many years, the depression resurfaced at times, and the anxiety resurfaced at times. And I went to therapy and took the medication when I needed to, and continued with all of the meditation and all the exercise all of these coping strategies and resources helped me with my anxiety and depression. None of it had anything to do with addiction. Once you're clear of your addiction, finally the fog lifts, the mists clear, and you can finally deal with the actual underlying problems of what's actually going on. But if you fall into the trap of thinking, I drink because I'm depressed, that's the addictive voice that's saying, right, so when we're depressed again in future, the response will be to drink. And so your addictive voice can then make you more depressed because it wants you to drink. See? It's the other way round to the way that you're thinking. Again, I don't want to be unsympathetic, and if you're suffering, my heart goes out to you, but I desperately want you to get rid of the addiction. If you get rid of the addiction, you'd be surprised how many other things just start falling into place. Another common one is, yeah, but what if? So what about somebody who started practicing AVRT, seemed to be getting on really well, and then went back to drinking? Well, old habits die hard. And again, it's just purely self-honesty. What actually happened? You decided to drink again. I had a couple of periods of that, and I was very tempted to say, oh, it's because AVRT doesn't work. No, it's not because AVRT doesn't work. It's because I decided to drink again. I wanted to feel the relief and the high of being drunk. That's the only reason anyone drinks, is because they want to feel drunk. It feels great. Let's not be naive about this. It feels fantastic to be drunk. You feel completely disconnected from all of your problems. You feel happy. You feel energized. You feel confident. You feel high as a kite. That's why people drink. And been if you've been practicing AVRT and went back to drinking, just be honest with yourself about what the circumstance actually was. You felt like it. That's pretty much. I'm wary about going too much into the criticisms and the sort of queries and the whatabouts when it comes to AVRT, because it's just the addictive voice rearing its head in me and in others, and it's all a load of garbage. Stay the course. You can do this. The fact that you clicked on this and the fact that you've listened all the way through means that you are sincere in your desire. Reaffirm the sincerity in total abstinence forever. Yes, the rest of your life. You don't need alcohol. You don't want to continue. You don't want to die an addict. You don't. There is a beautiful life waiting for you. It's a life of health, happiness, openness, joy. No more guilt, no more shame, no more confusion, no more horror, no more poor health as a result of drinking. No more. You've had enough of this, and you can do so much better by getting rid of this addiction forever. And you can do it. You can. I felt hopeless for many years. And anyone who knew me from 12 years, 13 years ago, they would say, that Corin guy, he's going to die of alcohol one of these days. That guy is not going to make 30. That guy he's not going to make it. He's going to drink himself to death. He's in terrible condition. That's what anyone would have said. And now, these days, when I speak to people now, and sometimes I say, like, oh, like in the past I had this like alcohol problem, people look at me absolutely stunned. They say, I cannot imagine that now. That is so far away from the you that I know. They think I'm making it up. It's actually hard to convince people that I used to be an alcoholic. They don't believe me. They say, what? That is not like you at all. And I look back and I go, yeah, you're right. That is not like me. It's not like me at all. But at one point, it was the other way around. People would have said, there's no way he's going to sober up. There's just not a chance in hell. And it was only through finding AVRT, after trying lots of different things. I did try AA. I mean, again, I don't just want to just completely, disparage AA or talk down about AA. It works for some people. If it works for people, then go for it. It didn't work for me. It doesn't work for a lot of people, and they're not the only game in town. That's the only thing that I will add. They are not. They don't get the final say in addiction. There are other methods, and AVRT is a woefully unknown method. But I think that's partly the AV in itself. The AV knows how effective AVRT is and doesn't want the word getting out, basically. So I just want to give you a little bit of hope and optimism there. You can do it. You absolutely can do it. Just keep going. I sometimes feel like as if I was talking to myself from 12 years ago, I'd say, look, mate, it's time. Let's fix this now. Let's get up. You know the right thing to do. You know what to do. Be honest with yourself. You already know what to do. Let's get up. Let's knuckle down and let's get to it. I would highly recommend picking up and reading the book Rational Recovery. It's on Amazon. I'm not. This isn't like a promotion or anything. I'm just doing this purely off my own back. I'm promoting it because I believe in it. I'm not getting paid for it. And look it up, AVRT. There's more on it. There's more material on this in lots of different places. If you enjoy and benefit from my meditations and talks, please consider becoming a paid subscriber on my Spotify. It's only $2.99 a month. That's less than the price of a coffee these days. If you're listening on YouTube, please hit that subscribe and like button. That helps me out massively. I can't tell you how much that helps me out. And stay tuned for more content. That's AVRT. That is how I recovered from alcoholism without AA, using AVRT. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Truly, take care out there. I hope you are well. I hope you are happy. I hope you are healthy. And let's move this situation forward. Take care, be well, and stay present.